Oh,
Hey,
hi Harpreet. How are
hey,
you?
good. How are you? Sorry about that. We were having some technical difficulties joining.
No worries at all. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm so excited. So thrilled to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Um,
Um,
likewise, I am too. And I think, as you know, I am close to someone that's in one of your courses right now, and I've been enjoying some of the food. I got my favorites. We can talk about that later.
oh, good. I'm so glad. Have you noticed a difference in your aura ring since eating anti-inflammatory, like to the extent that you are?
Yeah. I again, I'm not officially in the course or anything, but I need to be, frankly. Yeah, I think my resting heart rate has dropped a couple points. My HRV is a little bit higher. I have been getting great deep sleep too, but I'm still pretty new in, so I think probably more progress to be made. But frankly, I think what I have noticed even as well is just overall like not craving as worse foods, feel better after I eat. So thanks a ton for doing what you do. Frankly, I think
Oh,
it's
you're so welcome. Thank you guys for doing what you do. I really mean it. There's very few things that I feel that I can't live without. And I really cannot live without my aura ring. My husband actually makes fun of me because if we leave the house, I will forget my wedding ring. But I'm like, oh my gosh, no, you have to turn back. I'm not wearing my aura ring. And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, you can live without it for like an hour or two. I was like, no, 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 babe. I need my data tracked all the time. I'm basically addicted to it because of the incredible feedback it gives me. And I've been using it since September 2019.
okay.
Um, I've been using it for fertility tracking. I've been using it for basically optimizing my sleep. Even though I had done all the sleep resets, I really was having a hard time converting into a morning person. And I think what the Oura Ring gave me was it gave me the ability to see how much blue light pollution was causing my sleep disturbance and allowed me to actually become a morning person. And I think if anyone here is watching, that if you have troubles waking up in the morning, and you've tried everything, I think getting an Aura ring that gives you that biofeedback of when it is necessary to go to sleep, when it is necessary to wake up is, and what you can do to optimize your sleep by getting rid of the blue light pollution is everything. I know that when I first started, I heard from someone at your company that one of the most remarkable things that they've found is that when you reduce blue light pollution, that you'll see that your Aura ring sleep quality goes up extraordinarily.
Yeah.
And I kind of believed it, but I wasn't sure until I became a believer. And I'm such a believer. So, a lot of people are still confused about how the Aura Ring works. And even though we explain it in our Heal Hive, because so many of our clients are using it to optimize their health and get through chronic illness. Can you just kind of walk everyone through really quickly, like,
Yeah.
what's inside of it,
Sure.
how it figures out your HRV, how it figures out your REM, etc.
Yeah. No, it's a really good question. It is a tiny ring, but we got like a bunch of sensors on the inside. I know these camera lenses aren't always the best, but
I can see it.
cool. So yeah, we have two LEDs. So they're emitting infrared light. So I think people are sort of used to wearables and like your Fitbit or Apple Watch or Garmin, and it'll sort of have like a green light. We tend to use infrared. One, it doesn't disturb you when you're sleeping, and two, I think it's been shown in other types of work that infrared light may actually be helpful,
Oh
not
yeah.
not harmful to you. So we have two infrared light, LEDs, and then we have in the middle it's a detector. So essentially how most of these wearables work is you shine light at a really really fast pace, and then you're able to see a pulse back on sort of the receiver. And so that's really the core of it, just like most other wearables. We do have three temperature sensors in there, which you can see on the finger, but it's a lot harder to see on the wrist, and hence most of those devices don't track temperature. And we have an accelerometer, which tracks movement, and a gyroscope as well. I think really our focus has been like, how do we really help people optimize their sleep and recovery? There's a
Hmm.
lot of wearables that really focus on activity. And frankly, I like to think about that as sort of like a lagging indicator or a leading indicator. Your sleep, as you start to perfect it, really helps you prepare for whatever is ahead in the day.
Oh,
You know
without a
what?
doubt. It's
Yeah,
everything. It's a foundation for your day, for your mental health and for your, you know, how you're going to optimize your energy for the day. I mean,
Totally.
it's a no-brainer. Have you guys been looking into the research going into the lymphatic system and just how they've realized that if you do not sleep properly, you basically do not detox your brain, and your
Yeah,
brain accumulates all these toxins and it brings you down with your mental acuity along with your emotions. So I think that this is, you know, could be a huge game changer in the future psychologically for people who have
totally.
sleep disturbances. So that's so cool. So this small wearable technology, this wasn't really, you know, applicable a few years ago until you were able to get these small gyroscopes and temperature trackers and infrared into the small little wearable. And so the ring was chosen because of the fact that the finger is able to, it's like a better, more refined
Yeah.
way of temperature tracking. Okay.
Well, actually, it wasn't just temperature. It's so temperature is one thing, but I think the other thing that drove it is just the quality of the pulse signal. I think, like, you know, we're all taught to measure our pulse in kindergarten
Sure.
or first grade, wherever it was, on like either on your arteries here or like your neck, you know, there are probably the two most common. And as you guys probably know, most of your wearables sit here. Can't feel your pulse here. Turns out these arteries here and here have a lot richer blood flow, you know, than the veins that sit here, and they go into the palm of your hand, and you know your hand is sort of really, you know, the skin's very thin. Those arteries are really close to the surface of the skin, and that ends up resulting in a much richer, you know, pulse. And because of that, we're able to sample a lot faster, like when we shine those lights from the LED, then and not use that much battery as you would have to do on the wrist. And frankly, the signal just looks clear. So I'd say that's core to everything we do, whether it's sleep staging, whether it's heart rate and heart rate variability, whether it's even respiratory rate, which is another thing that we measure. And then obviously the finger also had advantages for temperature. And then the other thing is we just found people don't want to wear a watch to bed. It's sort of clunky.
It is.
If you're trying to cuddle with your partner, it's like, you know, you can scratch them in the face, which doesn't look good. And I think it's just something that you sort of forget it's there. And, you know, when it's on the finger.
Yeah, no one really knows you're wearing it. And you know, I actually like the way it feels. I like the heft. It makes me feel tough for some reason. You know, it's like you put it on your knuckle. We're going to get into a lot of the questions. I know two big questions people have are about the sizing of the ring, EMFs, and also about how to basically measure heart rate variability during the day. I know
Yeah.
that those are three big ones, but I had a few questions that I sent to you that I wanted to talk about. And the one that really interests me the most, that I think that people who probably don't know about this study, is that you guys have sent, is this right, 2,000 rings for free to first responders in the Bay Area, doctors, practitioners, to track their response to COVID. And
Yeah.
because your temperature tracker is so extraordinary, can you talk to us a little bit about that? And
Yeah.
can you talk to us
Totally.
about whether you've gotten any data back and how the doctors are loving it?
Yeah. So no, thanks again for the question. So yeah, we actually now have 3,000 frontline healthcare workers
Wow.
that we've given rings to. We
By
did
the
have
way, thank you.
no, appreciate that. And honestly, thanks to our first responders that are out there helping deal with this pandemic. You know, we'd be
Absolutely.
in worse shape without them. But yeah, so I think, you know, we've been doing a bunch of research at UCSF with a couple different researchers there. And one doctor, Dr. Ashley Mason, she was actually looking into the ring and believe it or not, saunas. So she was doing some work on depression and saunas and improvement in sleep and then improvement in depression. And so
Awesome.
she was pretty aware. I'll have to connect you with her. She's great.
Oh, please do. Yeah.
Yeah, she you know, so she knew about the temperature sensing, and then as you know, all basic research was paused, you know, globally, but you know, at least in the state in the U.S. You know, our research studies that we were doing were going to get paused for a bit, and you know, one of the ideas that we had together was, well, she was like, look, a lot of my peers in the hospital are likely to get sick, right? We're sitting there, we're seeing people that have COVID that are in really bad states, unfortunately. And, you know, we're really high likelihood to get sick, and we're working harder than ever. And so even that's compromising your immune system. And so, you know, we felt like, hey, why don't we try to learn and also give the healthcare workers, frankly, safety and peace of mind? So yeah, we have 3,000 frontline healthcare workers. We also opened it to all Oura Ring users. We have, I think, over 40,000 now enrollees total in the
Holy
study.
moly, that's
Yeah,
incredible. What
pretty.
amazing data.
Yeah, it's insane. And then actually the hospitals now, so it's UCSF, it's Stanford, it's Santa Clara Valley Medical. And then we actually have Northwestern enrolled. There's Beth Israel in Boston, and even Cornell Wheel in New York. So we've expanded. Luckily, we did receive some funding from an anonymous donor who actually did help us get some more rings out to increase the sample size from 2,000 to 3,000. So that was super helpful, and appreciate him for doing that. But yeah, and the early data looks awesome. I think, we've also seen another research institute, the Rockefeller Neuroscience Institute of West Virginia, doing a similar type study where they deployed already 1,000 rings to frontline healthcare workers in that state. And between the two studies, I think some of the early data suggests that we can see this 2 to 3 days in advance, if not more. It's still early days. The
Whoa.
study's not complete, and it's a research study, so really the researchers have to go through and come to the conclusions on the data. But frankly, I think we've seen a ton of interest and support from the community. We've heard from frontline healthcare workers how this is just a little bit of a peace of mind. Really, like they're working around the clock, and I think we've all been there. When you're exhausted, you really don't know how you feel. You're just like, there's something that's driving you to greater
Exactly.
mission, which is great. But at the same time, getting a little bit of feedback just makes them sure, that they're doing okay.
We
So,
found the same thing with our chronic illness community at the Heal Hive, that they're able to basically test, not guess, that
yeah.
they're able to see when they can push themselves, when they should take it easy, how well that they're responding to certain things, and how much that they need to do more in order to support their body. Are you finding the feedback with the ring in terms of these first responders to be more because of the temperature tracker, or because of the heart rate variability, or is it all the data points
Um,
together?
yeah, interesting enough, it seems like all the data points. I do know from the research data that that the researchers have talked about high level. They're seeing changes in heart rate variability, so HRV, respiratory rate, and obviously temperature. I think temperature, some of those other things fluctuate. Well, all of those fluctuate, a lot depending on what's going on. But in particular, temperature, aside from your fertility and your cycles, I think really that's a significant one for onset of any type of influenza like illness, ILI. So yeah, I think that one was really interesting. And there's been other wearables that have put out some research before on just how you can look at just heart rate and the resting heart rate and just look at signs of the flu. But obviously, the more data you have, the better prediction it can be.
I mean, I think that it can be a game changer in the future, and everyone should be wearing it, especially for the fact that it can show you potentially whether you're about to get sick. And I think for frontline workers, it's not just about their own health, it's what they're bringing into their family. And for
Yeah.
them to be able to potentially self-isolate days before and protect their family, especially because they're putting them, not only themselves on the line, but their family is everything. And so I
Yeah.
commend everyone, and especially that anonymous donor that's helping support your guys' research. It's incredible. So let's talk about Oura Ring and research, because I think what's so interesting to me is that you see companies like this, especially technology companies, and they invest so heavily in marketing and not necessarily in research. And so there's a consumer feeling that it doesn't really work. Where
Yeah.
I love Oura Ring is you guys are basically investing in research over, in fact, the marketing.
Yeah.
So can you walk us through, I think for me, one of the most fascinating research aspects that you guys have embarked on recently is your study, I believe in Berkeley, with temperature tracking compared to basal body
Yeah.
thermometers. And for women out there who have gone through fertility issues, which I know I have a lot of followers who have, basal body thermometers are a pain. You have to check your temperature before you even get out of bed. You have to make sure you haven't drank a glass of water in the middle of the night. They're just a pain. And you guys tracked women's temperature readings at Berkeley with a scientist there. And can you walk us through the study and what was gleaned from it?
Yeah, so it was Azure Grant is the principal investigator there. She's terrific, and I know again it's not published yet, but I think it's going to be pretty soon, which we're excited for. And what they tracked was a lot of different things. So they tracked a saliva test for different hormones. I believe it was LH. And
Yeah.
they
That's
also
luteinizing hormone.
uh, thank you. And also they looked at, frankly, they did multiple temperature sensors. So they did eye buttons. They also looked at, you know, I forget, there was another measure of heart rate and, but I forget exactly what it was. So it was some type of even chest strap in addition or something like that. And then they had Oura rings. And honestly, the data, because we do track temperature all throughout the day and night continuously, I think what they found was basically that the prediction of sort of when different hormones can surge based on some of the blood work and saliva work they did showed that Oura Ring can actually be even just as good as some of those other methods, if not better. And so I think it was pretty significant. Really excited to get that out there. And honestly, it does come back to like just we're one of the few companies that shares all of our data with researchers. You know, most other companies that are wearables, you know, I think Apple Health Kit, it's at least, you know, public on Apple that you can only pull every fifth heartbeat, you know, from the device, and they, you know, see more data than that very likely, but they
And they're
only
not
share.
sharing it.
Yeah, and I think it's just our view has been, you know, if we come back to, I sort of take a step back and look at how the wearable industry started. Really, it started with, hey, these step trackers, and guess what? There's 500 million watches sold every year, of which half are sort of digital. Let's put an accelerometer or gyroscope in there to track your steps, and you know, there's a market for that. I think when you take a step back and actually want to understand your health, you start to realize, well, you know, they started adding heart rate sensors in later that that's not the best place to measure your heart rate from a wearable. It also doesn't have other things like temperature. And so our view was, you know, why not start with a device that can be more helpful that way? And how do we design the device for the problem? You know, not sort of a solution that already exists on the market that we're trying to modify. And I think since that belief came rooted in science, and choosing the ring, you know, and the form factor on the finger, we want to make sure we work with researchers to validate that. And I think as people sort of look at, I call them wearables 2.0, and everyone's moving this direction, which I think is good for consumers. They're going to be like, okay, yeah, what's better for actually accurately measuring my health? And they want to hear it from researchers. They want to hear it from, you know, people that are more objective and not just a company, you know, selling marketing materials. So it's been core to the product since day one. We had a research team well before we had a marketing team at the company, and I think you know, we're going to continue to do more of it. So we're just excited to help get this out there and for researchers, frankly, to have an open tool which they can learn from.
I mean, if I was a researcher, I would be so psyched to come across your company and to know you guys are being so open with this data, because I mean, what we know about science so far is that the more we come together, the more we share data, the stronger science. Um, there I am. The more that we can, you know, learn and strengthen medicine. And I think that I see the Oura Ring as a wearable device that can strengthen medicine now and in the future. So what I love about it is this idea, and we just touched upon it a second ago, really, is how you're empowering users to understand their body more. And to me, this is a big topic and a big theme in what I try and teach people, is that, you know, medicine, we come from a place, and I think it's a very antiquated place, where we think that doctors are know-it-all and that we sit back and we're just passengers in the journey of our health. And I think that wearing wearables allows us to not become passengers, but put ourselves into the driver's seat, and to empower us to get this valuable data that helps us optimize our own health. And, you know, this empowerment is so important to me, because I think that, you know, especially if we're looking at COVID, if we're looking at other infectious diseases like Lyme disease that are overtaking so many people in America and throughout the world, is that the more you know, the more you're able to protect yourself, the more you're able to understand how your body's reacting, the more you can do to, you know, bring yourself back to wellness, or, you know, get on the right journey. In terms of empowering people with the Oura Ring, I know that some people have some issues with understanding how it works
Yeah.
and the trends and what that means, and, you know, what the heart rate variability actually is. What are the top line solutions you would give people who are looking at Oura Ring or already have Oura Ring, that have these questions about, how do I best use it? How do I best use
Sure.
it for sleep? Can you walk us through a few of the top ones?
Yeah, I think first off, I think everything you just said is amazing. And frankly, it's what we believe at the company too. And like empowering people to understand themselves is so helpful. I do think, I think a lot of us think the practice of medicine is antiquated. So, frankly, giving someone a tool and a platform so they can just learn about themselves and what's working and what's not is so empowering. I've gone through my health struggles, feel like all of us have. And, frankly, I think everyone feels like either health belongs to a doctor or belongs to your friend that has like perfect six-pack abs. And, everyone I feel like wants to improve their health. That's something that's natural, innate in us and understand it, but it's challenging. Different things work for different people. And that's all part of the journey. But yeah, in terms of, I would say, first off, the material that you put out is also really helpful. So I think everyone should listen to you. And I
Oh,
think
thank you.
you've even talked about some of the things you've done, right? Like blue light blocking glasses, and just frankly, even going a step further and really getting your home set up in the evening with candlelight. And getting rid of, other things that may be sources of EMF and light pollution. That's definitely a top one we found for people improving their sleep. I would say for heart rate variability, there's a lot of different things. Stress is hard to pinpoint. It can be stress from your body and your gut. It could be stress from your coworker or the work environment. It could be stress from your environment, like molds, which I know is another thing you talk about. So I think, as a startup, we're trying to put more content and education out there to help users understand. Luckily, we have a really strong community with people like yourself sharing that. But yeah, it's I would say really the power, though. I think everyone's aha moment starts somewhere, and I think for me, even it was, I know alcohol is bad for me, and the first time I had just a single glass, with a friend. And who my best friend from college who I hadn't seen in a couple of years. It's like, wow, seeing that aha moment of, oh my God, my data shift this much. And then I think it's just
Oh,
really
by the way, my heart rate variability plummets. I can go from like super high 90s, 100, for days and days. And I
yeah,
have, 2 glasses of wine and I can plummet down to 30. And it's remarkable because it's still clean wine. But
yeah,
if I drink too late, it's actually caused me, this may not be the best health subject, but it's caused me to be more of a day drinker than a
sure,
night drinker, because
yeah,
I've noticed that if I have my last glass before 8 p.m., even better before 7, that
yeah,
my heart rate variability doesn't actually get affected as much. So in a way, it's helped me become a cleaner drinker because of the
totally,
fact that I
yeah,
know when I should drink and how to optimize if I do drink and how not to drink after 8 p.m. Like that is a cutoff point, which I never would have thought about before. I would have never had that
totally,
biofeedback.
yeah.
But yeah, alcohol is a big thing.
I was
Eating
just
too much salt, I've noticed. Like if I have too salty of a meal at night, my heart rate variability will be upset too. And I think it's probably because I'm hopefully, drinking water during the evening and waking up and getting, restless sleep. But all of these things are just fascinating when you see the details of
yeah.
how you operate in your day and how to optimize your health.
It,
Absolutely.
I think there's yeah, we'll jump into a bunch of them, but frankly, it's that I think it's really just seeing that cause and effect, that biofeedback, as you said. Like that's what we find is the most powerful thing. And so I think users that are people who are potentially looking at getting it, or people that have it, frankly, I think it's that you take a step back every morning, and whether it's 30 seconds or 3 minutes, you look at the app in the morning and you get feedback on how you're doing, and then you sort of honestly just look within, right? Like you ask yourself, wait, what did I do yesterday that I could have changed or couldn't have changed? And I think it's just that is really the magical moment of self empowerment. And so it may be late TV or late alcohol, and oh, you notice it. But I think once you have one of those aha moments, then you just start to be a little bit more conscious and look at those changes all the time. So really on how to use it, I think it's just that biofeedback, that checking in the morning. Really, I say you're checking in, not checking out. I mean, I'm guilty of this, right? Like, we have over 100 people at the company in 2 different places. And so there's tons of Slack messages, tons of emails, tons of text messages. And so, when in the morning, when you go through and check all those apps, you sort of check out, right? Like you don't ask yourself how you feel. And I think what's empowering about Aura is you look at it in the morning and you check in, and then you ask yourself, even, and if you have a longer morning practice, and like meditation and other gratitude and self-reflection, I think like you start to be a little bit more aware, but I think this helps softly nudging you in a direction. So I think it's really that you check within and you start to be like, yeah, what did I do yesterday? I had a late salty meal. That coconut curry that I had, I like it with a lot of salt. Maybe I shouldn't have that for dinner. Maybe I should have that for lunch. And so I think it's really that self-reflection that's empowering, and you can start to modify all these things. I agree with you. Blue light blocking and just blue light exposure was huge for me. Growing
Totally.
up as a kid, it was weird. I never fell asleep, when you're sleeping over other people's house and you're 10 or 12 years old or however old I was. Like everyone falls asleep watching a movie at 2 a.m. and I just never fell asleep.
Neither did
Um,
I. I was exactly the same. Now I know I was just sensitive to blue light my entire life.
exactly. And so now when I put on blue light blocking glasses and sometimes, sit down and watch something, doesn't matter what it is, I'll end up passing out most of the time, which is, just something really interesting to find and figure out.
Totally. I mean, if people watching are like, will this really make a difference? What I can say is that when I got the Aura Ring, I had blue light blocking glasses, but not the really intense ones that block out all blue light. They were more the wearable ones you could wear outside that looked, more hip. And I thought they were absolutely okay and that they were blocking enough blue light. It wasn't until I got the Aura Ring and then said, wow, my sleep is not optimized. Let me see if I can bring this down even more. Started, using candlelight at night, turned off all LEDs, and wore super, super dark red blue light blocking glasses in which you basically cannot hardly see anything. All of a sudden, my deep sleep, my REM sleep shot up to an hour and a half, 2 hours per day. And I just was shocked. And if I don't wear them, if I'm out, watching a movie at a movie theater or, driving late at night, it absolutely depletes immediately. Two things I want to talk about is that I've also found that we're talking about these kind of data sets in a moment of a day, and those are important. But I also think that the trends what you guys
Yeah.
give us in terms of the graph of the trends can be just as important, because so much of our health is not necessarily this one moment, but it's also about our health overall, like how much movement we're getting per day, how much sleep we're getting over the course of the month, because certain things will change. You might have a drink once in a while, you might have a stressful day. So I love how you guys show these trends. Have you noticed that people use them? And I think it's
Yeah.
kind of hard for people to understand, to navigate and get back to the trends, but I use the trend feature a lot. And then I also want to talk about the meditation app, or the part of the app that you have for
Yeah.
meditation
Meditation.
and for breath work. So can you talk to us about both of those?
Yeah. So no, thanks for asking them. Trends was something that, we were really glad to get out there. We do find users, frankly, using the tag feature, and they'll start to make tags and notes and then look at their trends. And I think, frankly, what we really want to do is take that to the next level, and make it even easier and make eventually a way for users to share easier, like what's working for them and what's not, just sort of learning from our community.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I think we do see people both looking at the daily view, but frankly even the weekly and monthly view. I know it's pretty cool. Like most of the times, when people get towards the holiday season, they're eating a little bit unhealthier. They're probably breaking their routines and staying up earlier, not moving as much. We do tend to see larger changes in the whole database, and other wearables have shown that too. And so I think, you could see that maybe on a weekly or monthly view. And I often find something really cool and motivating is just looking at vacations. So like anytime I go on vacation, I do, get another level of improvement in my heart rate variability, and, really is the time to recharge and sleep. And so that's
Well,
something I
be
always like to
careful
look
about
at.
telling people that publicly, because I can imagine that everyone working for Aura Ring is now going to be advocating for more vacation time. If I was them, that's what I would be doing. I'd be
Yeah.
like, hey, this is the way I optimize. I'm much better on vacation. Right?
Totally. No, I mean, there's definitely some truth there that getting a little bit of time away makes you way more effective for the rest of the year. But no, I think trends is super helpful because you're like, hey, even when things get really busy for us at work, I remember like seeing a month or two where like my data was, really bad. And just as that reminder, like, okay, I got to come back and focus. And so trends is something, we'll be continuing to improve and I think make it easier to access, but that's how we see people using it. Your other question on moment, our meditation mode. So yeah, we do. It was a big request by users to be able to see their heart rate variability during the day.
Mm-hmm.
Heart rate variability does have, from a measurement perspective, some challenges. So you need enough data points or heartbeats to actually show like an HRV number that's meaningful. And so we set that at 5 minutes. So if you do a meditation for over 5 minutes, you'll see your HRV and your heart rate trend, your HRV trend and your heart rate trend. And I think there's some good medical research out there that has shown that perhaps HRV can be linked to the quality of your meditation. And I think that's another moment for biofeedback. We've had users tell us,
Absolutely.
like, holy cow, when I first started meditating, my HRVs actually used to go down during the meditation session. Like, I'm trying to focus too much. I'm like too focused on not having distractions. And then as they progress, see their HRV actually after a week or two or a month really improve. So I think that's something that's really empowering as well, that biofeedback. But yeah, you can get to that by hitting the plus button on the app, and then you'll see something called Take a Moment. And there's a couple options. We want to make sure we can increase the content there over time for people that want guided content. So that's something we're working on too. Awesome.
Because I think that it's such an important tool to be able to use if you use it correctly. And I think that the Oura Ring, it has, an incredible place to grow within that. People have been asking, and it's a huge request, that there's outside of the movement section of the app, that they're able to look at the heart rate variability throughout the day. And are you basically saying that it's because you need so much of these data points to be able to create, data that is basically truthful, that you don't share the day HRV?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of constraints. That's probably the biggest one. So I think, frankly, yeah, trying to find an exact perfect 5 minutes of like clear quality data. That's the challenge with all these wearables, right? I think a lot of people don't know sort of where they're not at their best. And frankly, when they're not at their best is when there's movement. If you think about it, you're shining light and you're getting a reflection. It's sort of like if you were to get a satellite beam to your house and it was shaking your house all the time.
Gotcha.
That wouldn't be a clear connection. And so, we've tried to really, when we show data to people, we want to stand behind that it's accurate. And that's why we decide to, really show information that can be helpful to users. I would also say the frankly, other thing about HRV during the day and even heart rate during the day that we do hear our users, and we're working at trying to address some of that. Your heart rate and HRV during the day can change quite a bit. And frankly, sometimes it's a little hard to understand like why something may be changing. It could be frankly because you honestly are in a meeting and have to go to the bathroom. And really that's a sign of stress to your body. It could be just like, hey, you ate at a different time than normal. Could be that you're, running late on a presentation and you're trying to get it done and you're an hour behind schedule in your day. And those things aren't necessarily permanent stressors, right? And what's interesting about sleep, and frankly, getting back to sort of the brain and the body, really sleep is this place where your body reflects all the stress of the day, right? And actually tries to recover from it, right? Like you sort of mentioned, the lymphatic system, you're clearing away toxins. Those are toxins and inflammation markers that have formed during the day, And so I think really, again, these wearables came back that we were taught to, unfortunately, measure heart rate when we're on, the treadmill and holding it. And that was sort of the idea of like looking at your heart rate live. Frankly, I think what we've tried to do is give people a window that's probably the most helpful and meaningful to look at and focus on that. And I really do come back to even leading versus lagging indicator. The way we've seen even athletes use our devices, they'll go and look at their heart rate variability from the night before, their deep sleep and other things and how much sleep they got. And then they'll figure out how to train versus, hey, I'm going to go out for a run and have a planned heart rate zone and then realize, oh, I'm a little high or a little low. It's almost like you're reactive versus proactive.
That makes sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think what's so interesting about our brains and sleep is like, we're still learning this stuff. It's all new. People have been studying heart rate, and movement and activity for, I don't know, 50 years plus. I know at least Polar was the first one out there with a wearable monitor for consumers, a chest strap, and that was in the late 70s. And so I think what's interesting about sleep is this is still like a new frontier. We really, as a society, don't know all of the benefits and
Nor
things that
how,
happen for sleep.
nor do we actually, I think, acknowledge how important sleep is, right?
Yeah.
We focus on diet, we focus on other things, maybe this, ubiquitous stress, but not
Oh, I think we do.
absolute most important aspect to, I
I,
think, to our wellness. As I always say to people at the Heal Hive, you can go a month without eating. You can
yep.
go a few days, even almost a week without really drinking water. You cannot go a few days without sleep, or you
Yeah.
literally go insane. And
Yeah.
for that reason alone, it is the foundation for everything I do. It's all sleep related. And I think that Aura Ring excels in that, in that area. There's some questions that we got in even from yesterday, but I'm going to open this up, everyone, because we have about a few minutes, 10-15 minutes left. You guys can put your questions into the question box and we will go one by one. If you don't know what that is, it's the question box below. But one big question people have, and this worry, and it's a big trending topic right now, is EMFs. And I'm sure you guys have gotten it before, and people are worried about the EMFs that the ring might project. I think, but what I know of it is that it's so little. Can you talk to us about EMFs, and for those worried about wearing one, what they can do?
Totally. No, I think it is a concern, and I understand it, and we've designed our product to help in this area. So we do have an airplane mode. So you can actually just turn off all the connectivity in EMF. If you want to just track your data overnight or only turn it on when you sync. And so yeah, you can put in airplane mode, as Knight Rider UK just said. So that turns off all the Bluetooth transmission. And it'll turn back on when you pop the ring on the charger. So that's a notification to the ring to keep actually transmitting. And really, from a Bluetooth perspective, we use the lowest Bluetooth setting we could. We actually don't even send a transmission that often. I think it's every 30 minutes we check to see if the phone is nearby with a very quick pulse check to transmit data or not. I think other wearables, frankly, are probably pinging every 5 to 10 minutes, if not more. And then the other thing I'll say is because we have such a tiny battery inside the Oura Ring, we don't really have the luxury of having more power to send, a robust signal to a really, really far away distance. And so I sort of always look at that too, like energy can't be created or destroyed. And like we have a much smaller battery. It's probably 10 times smaller than your average wrist-based wearable, 6 to 10 times smaller. And
Probably
so,
smaller than your just own watch you're wearing, right?
oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Without a doubt. So I think, because of that, we also just don't use a lot of energy when we're sensing all the things we do. But yeah, I think the airplane mode was probably the most helpful. And then, frankly, sending it less often of wearable signal than other devices. So we sort of let users, some people do want to check their data a lot and they do like having a connection and, the benefits of technology. But I do think for those who are more conscious about it, there's a way to turn it off.
Reed Falconer just asked a question, and I'll get to the other questions we've gotten, but he said, custom tags and correlations, graph showing tags of positive, negative effects over a time period. I have to say that this is my big request too, is to be able to search for my tags and be able to find them and graph them. It's probably a big ask because it's asking, the algorithm to do so much processing, but do you think that will be in the future?
Yeah, it will be in the future. I think even actually next month you'll see an update to more tags. So
Awesome.
That'll help, right? Because I think what we actually did is we looked at all the notes and custom tags, and then we went and actually looked at how many people wanted a certain amount of tags. And so then we're adding a bunch more to make sort of the correlation feature easier that you can see with regular tags. And we also in the Aura on the web, we have a cloud dashboard that any user can have access to. We even added some features there like Pearson coefficients, so people can start to run correlations. I think in the future you can imagine like correlations against those tags would be really, really helpful. So yeah, working on it. It does have design challenges because like everyone wants to use it on the phone and it's like this tiny screen and we have all this data. So it is a real design challenge. Yeah, I think we're working on it. Frankly, I might even try to pull you aside and talk to our our chief product officer to give him a little bit more feedback on maybe some things that you want in the tag side, just so he has a little bit more direct exposure. But we're working on improving it as we speak.
I'll come in and talk with you guys anytime. As everyone knows here, I'm such a fan. So this is a question that we got. I'll bring it up. Dr. Joyce VB says, I see patients are scared of monitoring their data. How can we communicate that this is safe? So yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah. So patients monitoring their data, I'm assuming in the study, is what that question was related to.
Well, I just think people are scared of this big brother understanding, knowing your data. I always say to people, they already do. So if anything, don't take away your ability to understand your own data because of this kind of paranoia. You're on Facebook and you have an account, but you won't wear a wearable, like, please. But why don't we talk about that in more detail?
I wish I could say that when people ask me that question.
Well, I can.
Yeah. So no, look, I think we take privacy super seriously. We are GDPR. The company started in Finland, and because of that, I think we had some really positive things, and one of them is privacy. So GDPR is Europe's General Data Protection Rights. I might be missing the R, regulation or rights, but all of our data in our database is de-identified, so we don't know any individual's data. We don't sell that data to third parties or advertisers.
That's important.
Yeah, so we take that stuff pretty seriously. Unfortunately, GDPR, I would say, is even harder than some of the other regulations like HIPAA in the U.S. But I think it's the right thing. And any of the studies we've done, any of that research, all is opt-in. So, for UCSF and sharing your data with researchers, you're not even sharing it with Aura. You're sharing it with actually, the University of California, San Francisco, and they have, an independent review board, an IRB, right, that is approving everything, what is allowable to look at and what's not. So, we've chosen to work with third parties, frankly, to analyze some of that data, because I think it can get pretty tricky if we're doing it. And so I really appreciate that person's question. It's we're doing everything as we can from a company. On the other side too, I do think the future of health, as we've sort of talked about, is people sharing what they learn with each other, right? Really democratizing health, like what works. I think for one person who's preaching something about their diet at any time may not work for another, but there's probably someone who has figured it out that's similar to you. And so I think being able to empower a community is probably something we want to do more of. And, frankly, we did do some user survey work. We found that, roughly 70% of our users want to learn from the community, which we found is like super inspiring to hear, right? Like, and I think it shows like people still are willing to learn from anyone. And what's so cool about Aura is like, you can see what's working for you and then share that with others, just like you do.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Another question we have is, which I have a question too. Which finger tracks data the best? I have the sizing kit and I'm having difficulty choosing the size. And I think we see this a lot. I chose my ring finger because of the fact I knew I was going through IVF and I wanted to be able to go between these two fingers depending on my swelling because of IVF. So I chose it to be able to work on two fingers, but I think the sizing is an issue. People have asked for a half size, and I personally want to see a gold version. So are any of those things happening anytime soon?
A lot of questions there. Gold version, hear you. And a lot of people requested this. We do think appealing to both men and women is equally important, so we're working on it. I will say this, we did do a rose gold, which some of our users may know. The reason we discontinued it was frankly because it was fading to gold, as lots of rose gold does, but quicker than we wanted. And so we felt like it's not fair to put a product out that isn't going to be as durable as the rest of our products. And so with the coding for gold, that's been the primary reason for a delay, but we're working on it. In terms of sizing, so the reason we send the sizing kit is so you can actually figure that out, like which ring and finger, which finger you want to wear it on. As far as data and accuracy, actually all 5 fingers or 10 luckily give great data. The battery life is a little bit worse because the signal can be weaker on the pinky perhaps, and the thumb. So we recommend the middle 3. Okay. But frankly, I think you'd see a 10 to 20% difference in battery life. So really it's like what you prefer. So, we sort of say, try it on, feel it. I do agree that half sizes would be nice. Is you can think about sort of a hardware company that has to make lots of different sizes. Carrying a lot of inventory can be pretty costly. We definitely want to do it one day. I don't think we're there yet, but hopefully as we grow, we can make sure we do that to give even a better fit and experience for our users. So half size is not coming, yet. Gold, I think you could see that happening, sooner rather than later, but still no definitive timeline.
Well, I tell people it's not really about the half sizing. It's about feeling comfortable and knowing that you can move it finger to finger, period.
Yeah.
Because your fingers are always going to change depending on temperature, how hot it is, what you're doing. Let's see. We have some more questions. Let's see. When will you fix low battery warning notifications?
I saw that. Working on it. Working on that as we speak. So yeah, I think we only give a notification below 25%, and we should give a notification even earlier. We've even thought about how do we get that individualized for each person, because everyone's sort of battery life will be a little bit different based on how strong their pulse signal is. And so eventually our goal would be to do a personalized battery life. Like you will not be able to record data tonight if you sleep for 8 hours. So please charge your ring before, but working on it.
Another question that we got, I think we got like 15 people asked this so far, is will you guys be able to have an oxygen saturation meter on it?
Yeah, obviously a big request given, some of the, I think, stuff that's out there with tracking SpO2 and illness. It's something we think is interesting, and we're, I think we look at a lot of different future hardware. Right now, not something that, we're planning immediately. But I think there's a lot of user requests we get all the time. I do think that SpO2, frankly, for when you're getting sick it's not as helpful in the onset, but once you have it, obviously, I think the severe cases that have to go to respirators right now for COVID are people who aren't getting enough oxygen. So I think when it starts to get more severe, SpO2 is really helpful. Probably in the early onset and warning, I don't think there's enough research out there saying it's as helpful as some of the other things in predicting the onset.
I mean, I think that makes sense, is that when you're already that sick, you should already be at the doctor and they should be monitoring you. And you really, a wearable it shouldn't be all based off of you deciding, how to manage your own health. Okay, we have a few more questions. Let's see which ones we haven't gone over, because we've gone over a lot. I think a lot of people worry about how long it will last. I think that's a really great question.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a sense of how long the Oura Ring will last in terms of daily use?
Man, we still have generation 1s out there. So our generation
and how old is that? Yeah.
2016.
Whoa.
Yeah, actually they started shipping at the end of 2015. So there's still some Oura Rings, believe it or not, out there in Gen 1. I remember actually just recently a Gen 1 user reached out to us saying his ring died, and he was like, it must have been, November of 15. So yeah, he went, 4+ years, 4.5 years. And we do have a 2-year warranty. Most wearables only have a 1 year.
Wow.
So,
okay.
yeah, we do have a 2-year out there. So I think that should give people, like satisfaction and comfort. So I think as far as Gen 2s that have been out there for 2 years, very, very, very few, really just prototypes. So, but no, I think it's titanium. We found it's really hard to break. I think a lot of wrist-based wearables, frankly, the strap used to break. I know from Fitbit, people have even said that's their most common issue, that they're flimsy. A ring, it's titanium, it's pretty sturdy. And yeah, we have a 2-year warranty life. So I think that's best in the industry.
That's awesome. So I want to quickly, before we leave, talk about our partnership with you guys with the Heal Hive. Is that we are now using and encouraging every Heal Hive member. And Heal Hive, for those of you who are just tuning in, is a online educational platform supporting those with chronic illness and those with issues relating to modern maladies, like everything from thyroid dysfunction to Epstein-Barr virus to, as we know, tick-borne illness. And, for me, I think it's not just about our members being able to wear this to get that biofeedback and to, quote, test, not guess, but I feel that just as like we're talking about with COVID, that if everyone wore these, they'd be able to go to their doctor and be able to show their doctor, because so much of, you know, especially tick-borne illness is that it's really, really hard to test for. You know, you might not know on the outset that you're sick, that when you got, you know, bit 3 months ago, that it might have been causing this distress. But if you were wearing it, and even if your numbers came back in terms of your blood serum numbers as fine, because we know that, you know, that at least for Lyme disease, that the testing is so inadequate. Many times it's over 60%, it comes back as a false negative, that if you could show your doctor, no doctor, it's not in my head. Look at my heart rate variability for the last few months. Look at, you know, how badly I'm sleeping. Because with Lyme disease comes insomnia, becomes stress on the body, becomes, you know, temperature dysregulation. You know, I just think that it would be so helpful. So for any of you that are listening that live in an endemic tick area, the East Coast, the Great Lakes region, Colorado, I mean, there's, you know, disease-borne ticks everywhere in the world, in every single place besides Antarctica. But especially in America, especially in Norway, in Finland, it's growing exponentially. In some areas, it's 600% a year that these ticks are growing with these tick-borne illnesses. And do you see that the Oura Ring, especially in the future, is going to be a game changer for those with chronic illness, especially as it relates to them getting, you know, having doctors pay attention to these maladies that are not necessarily always visible?
Yeah. I mean, first off, yes, I definitely think it can be. I think really still, given what you just said about sort of the false test with Lyme disease and how often there's false negatives, that frankly, doctors are trained to look at those tests and they're not trained yet to look at all this physiological data. I do think that's changing, but I really do think the empowerment starts with the consumer. And honestly, I think it gives the consumer and confidence that, hey, even if this test said negative or this doctor said something negative, I know for me that something's not normal and, you know, something's off. So I think it gives, honestly, confidence to people who are searching for answers first, right? I think that's the hardest problem, right? Is that people run something and you're like, no, I know I'm off. I know something's not right. I didn't always used to feel this way. And, you know, I know, especially with Lyme, it can be really challenging because someone called me.
No problem.
Apologize about that. You know, that most doctors aren't trained to actually even know how to diagnose and treat it, right? And so I think it's especially helpful as a tool of self-empowerment and self-learning. I do think we'll get to a future state, Brooke. I hope it's 3 years, not 5 to 10 years or 20 years away, where the practice of medicine keeps changing. But I think the more data we gather, and frankly, the more positive, you know, people like you that are out there showing that no, these physiological parameters that are backed by research are changing when I start changing my health habits. This means there's something wrong with me, right? And I think that it really is going to take a powerful community and coalition to change that, and that's why we're here. And I know,
and hopefully doctors who start to wear these see how valuable
yeah,
the data is and see that they're going to actually empower their patients to take better care of their own health by having this.
yeah,
So for everyone asking, if you want to order an Oura Ring, you can go to auraring.com, or for the next 2 days, I believe, you can go to the Heal Hive or Everyday Expert, and you can get a code for, I believe, $50 off, and that's only for the next 2 days.
yep.
And if you think about it, $250 for your health for the next year there's no better way. So do you have anything else to add to our followers? We've had so many. I think we've had over a few hundred today.
Yeah.
Any last words before we say goodbye?
Look, I honestly thank you. I think the stuff that you're putting out there and showing people how to improve their health, that's what we need, right? We're part of the solution, but frankly, I think people look to you and your journey and all the great content that you put out. So thank you for doing that, Brooke. And frankly, it's thanks a ton for having us on too.
You know what? Really, we're stronger together. We exactly. all are. And data is, I always say data is queen. Data is our friend, that. And research scientists are our friend. And the more that we can work together with wearable technology, with the right data, with research scientists, we can all become healthier and happier, for sure. Thank you, Harpreet. We so appreciate it. Love from all of us. All
Yeah.
right. Everyone
Stay
have a good
safe.
day. And this will be live for 24 hours. And then we'll put it on IGTV. Bye, everyone. Wear your Aura Ring.
See you, Brooke. Bye.